Amy Adams is from the New Zealand Health Trust, a non-profit group dedicated to preserving consumers' health choices. Hi Amy.
Hi there.
I read in the papers recently that the government is changing how we control natural health products. First, can you tell me what exactly is a natural health product?
Sure. Well, natural health products are increasingly a part of everyday life in New Zealand. They include products we're all familiar with like vitamin C, Baroccas, your multivitamins, right through to the more specific supplements like glucosamine and other arthritis and similar products that people take.
So what is the government planning to do?
Well, what they're planning to do is give control of the natural health products sector, along with medical devices and pharmaceutical drugs, to an existing Australian agency, which will then be in charge of the entire Trans-Tasman area. So natural health products will start to be classed as if they were drugs.
And how is this different from what we have now?
What we have now is natural health products being regulated as foods and controlled in New Zealand. Under the proposal, they would be regulated as drugs and controlled primarily from Australia.
Now, I use a range of natural health products and dietary supplements for my family. What would this proposal mean for people like myself?
Well, actually, most New Zealanders do. The information the Health Trust has is that over 2.5 million New Zealanders use natural health products on a regular basis. This proposal is going to mean that for a number of people, the products they're currently using may not be available, and if they are available, they're almost certain to cost considerably more, and there's a real likelihood that those products will be less effective.
How about business and the New Zealand economy? How would this proposal affect them?
Well, the effect on businesses is really quite serious. Again, we've had a number of experts consider this proposal, and the information we've had is that up to 70% of the small to medium enterprises in the natural health sector in New Zealand could be forced to shut down, as the costs of complying with this regime simply make it inefficient for them to carry on in business. We've had this proposal looked at by a number of experts, and what they're telling us is that if it goes ahead, similar businesses in Australia will have a distinct advantage over their New Zealand rivals. This is going to mean a number of New Zealand businesses close down and a number of jobs will be lost.
Just how dangerous are natural health products? What does the evidence show?
Well, look, the simple fact is that they're not dangerous. The research that has been done indicates that fewer problems result from natural health products than result from eating everyday food, certainly significantly fewer deaths. And if you were to compare natural health products to medicines, to pharmaceuticals, there's simply no comparison. Medicines are one of the leading causes of death in the Western world, whereas there's been, I think, one reported death attributable to dietary supplements over the last 20 years.
Can you tell me, Amy, how does this system work in Australia? What do people think about it over there?
Well, the system in Australia at the moment is what they call the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration. And the TGA is widely unpopular in Australia, particularly amongst practitioners and those in the natural health field. They find real problems getting the products that they need. They're limited by incredibly bureaucratic overkill with the regulation of products. And as a result, the consumers in Australia simply don't have the choice and the freedom that people in the rest of the world, including New Zealand, currently have.
Didn't they have some big disaster with Pan Pharmaceuticals recently? What was that all about?
Well, Pan Pharmaceuticals was interesting. Whilst in the media that came across as a problem with the natural health sector in Australia, actually it was quite the opposite. What they had was one product that was shown to cause problems, Travacam, and that was a pharmaceutical. Even though following that, the TGA recalled several hundred natural products, none of these were found after testing to have any difficulties with them.
Has the TGA improved public safety in Australia at all?
The simple answer is no. Australia cannot show that it has any greater level of safety for its consumers than we have in New Zealand. And in part, this is because natural health products are simply not as risky as they claim them to be.
So if we did join up with the Australian scheme, would New Zealand have any say over the way regulations are made?
Very little say. The way it's intended to be structured is that our Minister of Health and their Minister of Health will sit at the top of the tree. Underneath them will be an appointed Chief Executive. And now that Chief Executive is one person, likely to be an Australian, and they will have the full powers to control all of this industry in both Australia and New Zealand. They are not accountable to the public and they're not accountable to Parliament.
That's got some pretty scary implications for our sovereignty. So if we didn't like it, could our government pull out a few years down the track?
In a practical sense, no. And that's what's so concerning. Once we give away our rights to this area, they're gone. Our government will not be able to take them back. What that means is that all the domestic protection New Zealand has won't apply to this agency. For example, as an international body, it doesn't have to consider the Treaty of Waitangi. It doesn't have to take into account our Bill of Rights Act. our Official Information Act, our Ombudsman, and potentially even our court system may not apply to this agency. So yes, the implications on New Zealand's sovereignty are major and very serious.
What does the New Zealand Health Trust think we should be doing instead?
Well, that's an important question, because what we all accept is that there has to be regulation. It's important that natural health products are safe and effective and the public can have confidence in them. What we're saying, though, is there need to be regulation for this as a separate industry. It's not part of food, it's not a medicine, it needs to be controlled for what it is. And most importantly, it needs to be controlled in New Zealand. So what the New Zealand Health Trust has done is set up a full model to show how this could work, and has had that model tested by economists to see exactly what the cost impact would be. We've done the work, we know it's viable, we know the cost will be significantly less to business, and we've put this model to both industry and to Parliament, and we've received overwhelming support from both groups.
Do we have the expertise to regulate natural health products in New Zealand?
Yes, of course we do. Despite what the government's trying to tell us, New Zealand has some of the leading experts in the world in this sector. I find it a bit ironic that the government on the one hand says that we don't need the Privy Council because New Zealand is competent of running all its affairs, and yet here is trying to tell us that we need Australia to help us out on this one.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to join up with Australia?
No. One thing that everyone agrees on is that what is being proposed is going to be a significant increase in cost to business. On the other hand, the model that the New Zealand Health Trust has developed has been tested, and we know that it will be significantly cheaper than any other proposal, including the one that the government is supporting now.
Would it be as safe for the public if we regulated it for ourselves in New Zealand?
Absolutely. The system that has been designed is a high-quality system designed to maximise public safety, provide more real assurance to the public than either what we have currently in New Zealand or what they've got in Australia. You've got to remember that these are low-risk products we're talking about. We're not talking about high-level, high-risk pesticides. We're talking about predominantly natural products with long-established histories of usage.
I understand there's huge opposition to the government's proposal. Can you briefly explain who's supporting the New Zealand Health Trust campaign?
Well, we've been overwhelmed by the support we've had over the past few years. We've had tens of thousands of consumers and practitioners, industry groups join us and support the work we're doing because they all see the tremendous difficulty with this proposal and they're all very concerned about it. The other support that we've been very pleased to receive is the widespread political support. When this proposal was first put forward, it was sent to what we call the Health Select Committee, which is the group of parliamentarians who look at all legislation affecting health and give their views on it. Now that committee is made up from representatives of all parties, and we spent a year in hearings with them, hearing from both sides of this proposal, the people for it and the people against it. What happened as a result of that is unanimously the Health Select Committee said, don't do this. This won't be good for New Zealand. It's been back to the Health Select Committee again, and once again they've rejected it and flagged their very real concerns. So we're very grateful to have the support of every party in Parliament except for the Labour Party, as well as I said, the huge number of consumers and practitioners who agree with us that this proposal is going to be devastating for New Zealand health.
What is the current situation? Hasn't the government already agreed to this proposal and signed a treaty?
Well, what's happened to date is that in December 2003, the Labour government did sign a treaty with the Australian government agreeing to take steps to put this joint agency in place. That's even though the Select Committee had already told it that its view was that the proposal should not go ahead. But that's not enough. For this joint agency to actually become law in New Zealand, there has to be an act passed through Parliament. Now for that to happen, the Labour government needs the support of several other minor parties, and for the last 2.5 years they have been unable to get that support. This joint agency with Australia cannot happen unless Labour can find the support of enough other MPs to get a majority. And they haven't done so far because of the work people like the New Zealand Health Trust have been doing, getting out there and helping people to understand just how serious this is. As more and more people become concerned and speak to their MPs, the concern about this proposal grows and it's getting harder and harder for the Labour government to get the support they need. Unless and until they can get that support, this will not become a reality.
So it's not too late to stop this proposal?
Absolutely not. What's in fact happening is that opposition to this proposal is growing all the time. Day by day we're getting more and more support as people become aware of this issue. We're continuing to work with the MPs, and the most recent information we have suggests that the Labour government is still going to struggle to get the numbers it needs to turn this proposal into a reality.
Well, that's pretty convincing, and personally I feel quite strongly about the issue. I'd like to do something about it, And how can people like myself help?
Well, look, there are a number of things. The simplest are you need to get informed. You can go to our website and read a lot of background information about that, and the address for that website is www.nzht.co.nz. Another thing that's really important to do is to talk to others, make sure other people are aware of this issue and how serious it could be. But perhaps the best thing people can do is to join us. The New Zealand Health Trust has been inundated by tens of thousands of supporters who want to join our organisation. Now the problem is that's not how trusts work. So what the Health Trust has done is set up a whole new organisation called New Health New Zealand. That's an organisation that everyone can join and which gives everyone a voice in ensuring that New Zealand consumer health choices are protected. To join that organisation, all you need to do is go to www.newhealth.co.nz. There's no fee on that, it's completely free, and that will make sure you're kept up to date with all the information, everything that's happening, and you can play a real part in protecting New Zealand's health future.
How can people contact you and the Health Trust, Amy?
Well, as I've said, there's already those two website addresses. The first was www.nzhealthtrust.co.nz. The second, to join New Health, www.newhealth.co.nz. Or if you're without a computer, you can write to us at PO Box 34057 in Christchurch.